Hey guys, it's Alex over at Laser Engraving, and today we are installing a brand new lens on our fiber laser. This is a great project because it basically forces us to start from scratch with our fiber laser setup. Whether you have a brand new fiber laser or you've picked up a brand new lens for it, we're going to cover everything you need to know to get things up and running. We have a lot to cover and we're going to be here for a little while, so grab some popcorn, sit back, and try to follow along. Hey guys, so before we actually get started in the computer, we have to install our lens. It's really straightforward as long as your lens is compatible with your laser. Make sure you talk to your manufacturer before purchasing a lens to make sure that it's going to fit. Otherwise, this next step could be really depressing for you. There's two main parts to our laser here. We've got the housing and the actual lens itself. We only want to unscrew the lens. We don't want to unscrew the housing. I mean, you can unscrew the housing, you're just gonna have to screw it back in, and the less we mess with those threads, the better. So just twist until that comes off, and there's your original lens right there. We're gonna go ahead and safely put that back in the box. The caps for the new lens may or may not fit your old one, so we're going to just see real quick. Maybe it's not a snug fit, so be careful. It may not fit at all. So we're going to pop that in the box so that that's nice and protected. And we're going to take our new lens right here and we're going to go ahead and screw that back in. You want to make sure not to damage the galvo mirrors inside of the galvo head by inserting this. So the first time you insert it, be very careful and make sure that you're not making contact with those mirrors or you will mess up your laser. So we're going to go ahead, just insert this really slowly. Be careful not to cross thread it, and we're going to screw that into place. And that's it. So it's screwed into place and we're good to go. You can try to run your laser like this, but it's not going to work well. I don't recommend it. Hold off and let's set some settings up on the computer before we start messing around with trying to use this as is. Everything is wrong for this right now with our current setup, so we need to go through and actually set it up to be used this way. So your first instinct may be to open EZCAD, but that's not where we're going to start. We actually have a little more work to do. So we are going to close this and we are going to navigate to where we keep our EZCAD folder. So this is my original EZCAD folder. If you are setting up for the first time, you just unzip the EZCAD, throw it somewhere you're not going to forget where it is, and leave it alone. I'll come back to you guys in a second. For those of you who are installing a new lens for the first time, your EZCAD folder is just going to be labeled EZCAD, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add an underscore and then our field size. So for mine, it's 110. This is for my old lens, okay? Because we don't want to confuse this with the new folder we're about to create for our new lens. So how do you know what your field size is? Well, it should be on the manufacturer's information for the laser that you purchased. So when I purchased my laser, I bought it with a 110 by 110 millimeter field size, okay? You don't want to confuse this for the focal number, the F number, all right? On my box, I'm going to grab the box and show you, 1 second. On my box, it says F330, okay? That's not the number you want. The number that you want is going to be right here, and let me pull this up for you so you can see. So the number that you want is this number right here, okay? So here's the lens my machine came with. It's a 110 by 110 f160. We want the field size number. That's this 110 by 110, okay? And I'm adding that here. It's important we don't mix this up because we're going to need this number later. And if we use the wrong number, it's gonna mess a lot of stuff up for us, all right? If you want to pick one of these fiber lenses up and you want a new lens for your machine, I have a link to this in the description below. All right. So if sidetrack really quick, if you want to know which one of these lenses to buy, all you need to do is pull up Google Converter, right? We just type in millimeters to inches. So The 110 millimeter gives me a 4" by 4" field to work in, so my workspace will literally be 4" by 4". With the 220, it's twice that, so it's 8" by 8". All right, so that's what these numbers mean. So you pick the one that you've either purchased or want to purchase, and that's where we're going to start. So we're going to label our existing lens right here, so 110, and then we're going to copy this entire folder, and we're going to paste it, and just give it a second to do its thing. And down here we have our copy. We're going to rename this with the new lens field size, 220. All right. So once that's done, what we are going to do, we don't want to navigate to wherever we keep this folder every single time we want to launch EZCAD. So we can open the original one and find our launch file right here and send it to the desktop as a shortcut. And then we can go into our new copied folder, and we're going to find our EZCAD launch file. We're going to change this information. Okay, so there's our 110 field from the old one. We want to change this to 220 because we're in the 220 folder. Our F number, we know that it's 330 because it's on the box. You can put it in, though it's not going to be entirely accurate, and we'll come back to that in a minute, but we can just throw that in there for right now. And we're going to go ahead and send that to the desktop too. So now we've got links to our 2 versions of EZCAD. So now when we launch from this one, we're launching to the copied folder. We won't overwrite our 110 settings. Everything is going to be separate, including our parameters that we create. Though we're starting with a fresh batch of parameters from our 110, they'll need to be tweaked a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. So let's go ahead and launch our new EZCAD shortcut to the 220. If this is your first time setup, just launch EZCAD. Don't worry about that. So we'll just give EZCAD a second to load up here. And now once we're in EZCAD, we will be greeted with a work area. We will do videos on all the functions of EZCAD, but today we're just trying to get you set up. So the first thing that we want to do is make sure that our workspace reflects the space that our lens is giving us to work with. We're going to do that by coming up to the workspace system parameter wrench and screwdriver here. And we're just going to roll through this real quick. So under general, show grid here will show or hide this semi-transparent grid that we see in the background. I like leaving it on. Nothing else in here really matters. You can set your unit type between millimeters or inches. I prefer millimeters. If we come into color, you can change the default colors of all of these things in your workspace. I would like a dark theme, but I've grown used to what's on the screen right now, so I'm just going to leave that for now. In workspace, so this is the first thing that we really want to look at. This is set up for our 110 lens, but we don't have a 110 lens in the machine. We have a 220 lens in the machine. So what we need to do is change our size from 110 to 220 here. This is the first place where if you use that F number, it's going to trip you up because we don't have 330 millimeters to work with. We've only got 220, so that's why you want to make sure you pick the right number. So if we hit OK, it's going to blow that up. We're going to get twice as much workspace, which you can see there, but it's off this weird angle from our center mark. Why is that? So let's hop back in here really quick, and we can see that our left bottom corner is set to -55, -55. That's this point on the grid right here. Now that worked well when our field size was 110, because 55 is half of 110, but 55 is not half of 220. So what we need to do is actually come in here, and we're going to adjust this and set this to -110 and -110. And when we hit OK, now that our left bottom corner is half the size of our field size, it's going to move that bottom left corner all the way down here, and now our center is center once again. All right, let's jump back into the parameters and take a look around a little bit more. So in workspace, I think we're good. If you wanted a circle workspace for some reason, you could check this box. I like having the corners in, so I'm going to leave that off. The center cross line is just this dotted center cross line, pretty self-explanatory. We can move down to autosave. I'm not sure if this works or not. I've never really tested it. I don't think I want to, but it's on, whatever. Our move and rotate. So when we have an object on the screen and we use our arrow keys, it's going to move that object a little bit. We're too zoomed out for you to see it right now, so I'm going to just zoom in a little bit. So there it goes. It's moving just a little bit. If we hold shift and use the arrow keys, it's going to move it more. Okay, and those two movements are controlled right here. So the nudge distance is just using the arrow keys. It's the little nudge. The big nudge distance is when we're holding shift, and that's shift and the arrow keys. So big nudge, right? So if you want to change those, you can change those to your heart's desire, make them whatever you're comfortable with. Not important, not important. Language, if you want to change your language. So with that, we are done with that menu, but there is a much scarier menu ahead, and that is the F3 menu. On your laptop, you might have to hit FN F3. Some laptops, if you just hit F3, it'll pull up like a volume control or a brightness control or whatever. So you might have to hit FN and then F3, and that's going to open up your configuration menu. Okay, so this is the next big important thing that we need to deal with, our field size. Okay, this needs to match our workspace size, and right now, again, it's set to 110 because we copied this out of our 110 parameter setup. So we need to change this to 220. Oh my gosh, 220. Great. And we have over here the aftermark go to. This just tells the laser where to drop the pointer when the job is over. I like having it in the center so I can line my next thing up in the center, and it's nice and quick. So I like just setting that to center right there. If for some reason while you are following this tutorial you notice everything is backwards, if you're moving right and something goes left, or you're moving left and something goes right, just swap this number right here. It should be Galvo 2, but just something to look out for. The last thing here, this is the field warp, and what this is basically is if you have a square on your screen and you project it onto your laser and you notice that there's bulging on the sides, or maybe the center is dipped in, or something like that, these are warpages caused by your lens, and they need to be corrected, and they can be corrected in software, and that's what we use these down here for. This makes no sense when you are just looking at it, so I'm going to pull up a little tool that I built to help you out, and by tool I mean a little note that I've basically written on a bar napkin. So I'm going to pull that up right now. All right, so here is my little cheat sheet. Okay, if you want to pause the video and take a screenshot of this, go for it, but basically here's how it works. Okay, each of these 6 sections correlates to one of these 6 settings, and I've made a note to tell you what they do. So if this value right here, the top left corner, is over 1, it's going to pinch the top and bottom sections in on your square. It's going to pinch them in. If it's under 1, it's going to bubble them out. Bubble them out. All right, same thing over here. So if this top right section, there it is right there, this top right section is over 1, it's going to pinch those side walls. If this number is under 1, it's going to bubble them out. And the whole point of this is to fix your squares. Okay, so you want to correct for the warp that the lens is causing on your field as you're projecting, and you can use this cheat sheet to help you, whether it's you get kind of like this parallelogram shape where things are slanted, or you get this trapezoid shape where things are pinched at the top and you're getting kind of like diagonal lines connecting the top and bottom. These settings will help you fix it, and I tried to make it as visual for you as possible so that you can see, like, over 1 it's going to pinch the right side, over or under 1 it's going to pinch the left side, and then over 1 it's going to pinch the top, under 1 it's going to pinch the bottom, etc., etc. You got to play with them. You got to play with them and kind of mess about in order to get things just right. But I'm going to stop talking about it, and we're actually going to jump over to the laser in just a minute and follow up on that in a little more of a physical way, so I can kind of help explain that just a little bit. Before we do that, we're just going to wrap up our time in the configuration parameters here. So we'll jump over to the next section here. So these are just basic laser control settings. We're working with fiber lasers, so we've got fiber laser marked right here. Under fiber, we're going to select what laser source we're using. So I have a JPT, so we're going to click that right there, JPT. This is your frequency, so the frequency you're able to set over here in the right column. Different laser sources have different frequency ranges. For Raycus, it might only be 25 to 50. For a Max, it might be even less of a range than that. I know for a fact on my JPT, I get 400 kilohertz max, and that's information from my manufacturer. So you might want to just check with your manufacturer and make sure that those ranges are correct, because if you overset them, it could damage your machine. So you just want to make sure that these values are correct so that it doesn't let you go over or under those values when you're setting up laser settings. So that's the thing you really want to check out there. I would not touch anything else on this screen. I would leave all of this stuff alone. The defaults are going to work for you. Just set your laser source, make sure your frequencies are accurate, and we'll move right along here. Port setup. Start mark in out. This is what triggers like a foot pedal or some kind of remote switch. I know that my port for the pedal is 15 because I asked my manufacturer. I know this is supposed to be a tutorial, but a lot of this stuff varies from machine to machine, especially when you're purchasing your machine from China. So you just want to ask your manufacturer and make sure that you know what port you need to use if you're using a remote trigger. So on mine specifically, it's port 15, but on yours it may be different, so you just might want to check that out. Next, we have the other category. Again, we're not messing with too much in here. This is your maximum speed that your galvos can use. This is the minimum speed that your galvos can use. You should get this information from your manufacturer. I keep saying that, but it's true. So, you know, these will probably be set for you by default and you probably don't have to change them, but if you do need to change them for some reason, they're in here. Like the frequency, this just limits the max value and minimum value you're allowed to set over here when you're setting up your laser settings. The last thing I want to talk about really quick in this menu is this red light pointer menu here. So when we open this up, there's this option that's called Enable Show Contour. And basically what this does is, well, I'll just show you. So if I uncheck this and hit OK, and we come in here and we make something like a circle. All right, so here's our circle. We can light this up over on the laser, and what we're going to get is a square. And the reason is it's just outlining a box around our shape. So, you know, 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, and that's all that we're going to be shown over there on the laser. That's not what most people are going to want, so we'll hop back into our F3 menu and come back into red light pointer, and we're going to check Enable Show Contour. I get asked this question all the time, and it's this simple. It's just this box right here. When we check that and we jump back out, we can go ahead and hit light again. And this time we're going to get a nice, beautiful circle, and it doesn't matter how complex the shape is. If we come in here and make this like some kind of crazy ellipse or a star or a pattern or literally whatever, and we hit light, it's going to show us the exact shape that we have on the screen here. So that's where that is. And let's see, lastly, there are a few settings in here that will change how you interact with EZCAD that are kind of outside of the scope of this video, but you know, something like enable execute mark start and stop command file. You could create a file that will tell the laser when to start or stop. Show start mark dialog, so when you hit the button to start, it's going to pop up with a dialog box to ask you if you're sure. So there's some things in here. You can mess with them if you want to. I've never ever felt the need to, but they're there for you if you want to mess around with those. So wow, that was a lot, and it was fast. I apologize if I'm speaking too quickly, but we're going to jump back over to our let's see, our field settings right here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about these. So when you're using your warp field settings, you want to use something as a base that you can place on the laser bed that you know is going to be a perfect square every time. Something that I recommend is Post-it notes. Okay, Post-it notes are exactly 76 millimeters by 76 millimeters, and they're a perfect square. It's very easy to just come over here, throw it down on the bed, and then make a 76 by 76 millimeter square, which we can do very quickly. We'll just get rid of that, and we will draw a new square and set it to 76 millimeters by 76 millimeters. We want to unlock so that our proportions aren't constrained. 76, there we go. Shift and C on the keyboard to center it up, and we'll zoom out here, and now we've got a perfect square. And we can hop over to the laser cam, and I'll get that a little closer so you can see exactly what I'm talking about when we are talking about some of these like field warp adjustments that we need to make. Okay, don't just copy mine because they are probably not going to work for you. You need to mess with these settings to make sure things get perfectly square. So we'll go over there and we'll talk about that right now. All right, guys, so here's the part that kind of sucks, and that is to fix this square. Okay, I can't use my focal stick that I already have. If this is your first time setting up a fiber laser, we will cover how to make a focal stick in just a few minutes. But I can't use my focal stick, so we just have to kind of guess at the focus. And I'm going to bring our laser head down here until we are right on top of that post-it. And we just want to line those red lines up until we get a nice good match. Okay, now this is the end result. Okay, what you're looking at right now is exactly what you want to see when you have accomplished your goal, which is to fix your square. If it wasn't set up correctly, you'd see either for example, a bulging of the lines here. You might see them bulge inwards on the top and the bottom. It might be a twisted, more like a diamond shape. And you have to use those field adjustment settings that we were just looking at, and you want to get this square absolutely perfect, exactly how it appears right here. That is about as good as you can hope to get. So go ahead and mess around with those field adjustment settings. Like I said, go back a couple minutes in the video if you need to, and take a look at what each of those field adjustment settings does. I tried to make it as visual as possible for you guys to kind of help you understand what those settings do. And once you get to this point where you have a perfect square, come back and we'll move on to the next step. Definitely ask me if you have questions. Join the Discord. There's a link in the description underneath the video here to get help doing this step if you need it, because it can be kind of challenging. Unfortunately, I can't help much more beyond what I've shown you because it's really kind of a hands-on thing, and you have to do it a little bit for it to click on what those field adjustment settings do. But what you want is you want this red laser to be a perfect square on something you already know to be perfect. In this case, just a pack of Post-it notes will do great. And again, this is 76 millimeters by 76 millimeters exactly. All right, so I'm going to head back over to the computer and we will move on to the next step. Don't be afraid to ask for help, guys, because this can be hard. Okay. Okay, guys, once you think that you have your field adjustments made and you're feeling good about it, we're just going to test it real quick. So we're going to take our 76 millimeter box here from our Post-it notes. We're going to resize this just down to 10 millimeters, like that. And we're going to give it a quick hatch. We'll do another video on hatch settings, I promise. So we've got a 10 by 10 square here. And if we light that up, we'll see it on the laser bed, and we can grab some test material, and we're just going to take two measurements. We're going to make sure it's 10 high by 10 tall. We have a nice looking square over there. So we're going to go ahead and jump over and give that a quick test. It's wise to do this test with a few different sizes. I wouldn't just rely on a 10 millimeter by 10 millimeter square, but that's what we're going to use for just the video purposes today. But doing it 10, doing it 50, doing it 100, you don't even have to hatch it. You can just do outlines. But take your measurements, make sure things are square across the board, because you really want a nice average at all sizes. As you get further out on a theta lens like this, things can become more curved. So we want to try to maintain the integrity of that square across all sizes of our field, not just one. But for this video, I'm just going to show you guys how to do one, and then we'll we'll move on to some other topics, mostly including getting this focal stick done, because we need to do that as well. So let's jump over there and do that test real quick, and then we'll jump into focal stick creation. So I hide a giant steel sheet under my machine for just such an occasion. It also, pro tip, having a steel sheet like this underneath your machine keeps it from blasting holes in your desk when the laser ends up inevitably going through these holes right here. So we're gonna just set this down right there. And we still, remember, we don't have a focal stick yet. We're about to get to that, but right now we just want to do a quick test. We've got our 10 by 10 millimeter square right there. We have to grab our safety glasses, and we're going to go ahead and hit mark and then take a measurement and make sure things are nice and square. All right, so we have our square here on our steel. Remember, we're projecting our laser twice as far as we were with our 110 by 110, so we're getting half the power we would have otherwise. All right, but that's not what we're concerned with right now. Right now, we just want to make sure that our field is set up correctly. So if I go ahead and I get the caliper in here, that is a nice tight 10 millimeters right there. Okay, and we come around here and we check the top too, and that checks out. So we have a 10 by 10 square, and that's what we wanted. Hooray! Next thing we're going to do is create a focal stick, okay? And this is not as hard as it seems, but to do this, I'm actually going to back out to the further away view on the laser cam here, and so that you can get kind of a good idea of how I'm going to do this. So 1 second, we'll jump over to that. Okay, so for this test, what we want to do is we want to make our square a little bigger, so I've made it 20 by 20 millimeters instead of 10 by 10. We want to jump our power all the way up to 100% because we need a nice, bright, loud mark so that we can determine where our best point of focus is. And I've also checked the continuous mark box down by the mark button at the bottom of the screen, and that will let this run and run and run until we find somewhere that we're happy with the focus. So we're going to put our safety glasses on here, and we're going to come to our keyboard. And it's F2 to mark, so I'm going to hit F2 and it's going to start marking. Now, what we're looking for is the brightest, loudest point. Okay, the brightest, loudest point is going to be our optimal focus point with this material. So I'm going to take this way up to where it's barely even doing anything anymore. I can just see the red laser. I can't even see any marking happening. And we're going to slowly start to come down until it starts to get really loud and then fades again. And once it fades, we're going to come back up until it starts to get really loud, and then we're going to go back and forth a little less each time until we find that sweet spot right in the middle. So I'm going to do that now. So now I can hear it. And now it's starting to fade again. So we're going to come back up. That's pretty loud right there. It's starting to fade a little, so back down. And that sounds really good. I'm going to bring you a little closer so you can actually see this happening, okay? So there's our mark. I know you can't see it very well, but it's going on. So if I go out of focus, you can hear it's gotten really quiet. And we come back up. And we're just looking for that loudest point. And that's doing it pretty well for us right there. So once you find that point, we're going to move on to the next step, and we're going to take care of that right now. Okay, so we've got that perfect spot of focus, but how do we measure it? Well, I recommend grabbing one of these clear acrylic rulers that has millimeters marked on the side. And we're going to just get things as straight as possible with the laser. You can even use the galvo head to make sure that you're nice and straight. And we're going to use our millimeter side here. And we're just going to get down and take a look. And it looks like we are right about 349 millimeters. But we have to remember, we're also not accounting for this little bit of space down here. Let me see if you guys can see that. So 0 doesn't start right at the bottom of this ruler. So we have to measure this distance and add that as well. So if we come over here, we'll just grab our caliper and we'll see from 0 to the end of the ruler, we have 6.5 millimeters. So we need to add 6.5 millimeters to our 349. So that would be 355.5. Okay, so 355.5 is how long we want our tool to be. So we're going to just jump over and cut that out really quick out of some scrap acrylic. Not really within the scope of this video, but if you have a CO2, it's really easy to do. Otherwise, you can just cut a stick or a dowel rod. Literally anything will do, as long as it's exactly 155.5. For me, for you, it's going to be different depending on the good spot for your laser focus. So take your measurement, cut your stick, and then we'll regroup. Okay guys, so we've cut our new focal stick here, and if we just want to test this out to make sure it's working, we haven't touched anything on our fiber laser. We can just take our focal stick and press it up against the cloud of the lens housing here, and it should just be ever so slightly touching our material when it's perfectly straight. So if we just get it to the side right here, I can feel it just brush the surface of the metal, and that is perfect. I mean, it's at the very least close enough for just about anything we're going to be doing here. So that is your focal stick. That's how you make one. All right, let's make sure we didn't miss anything. I did just want to note really quick that I've been throwing around words like we're doubling the field size, or this is twice as long, or it's going to take twice as much power. And the reason I'm saying that is because I started with a 110 by 110 when I bought my laser, and I'm adding a 220 to my collection, so it's double for me. But if you got like a 4-inch lens when you started, a 110 by 110, and you are adding a 6-inch to your collection, you would only be increasing your power or focal distance by 50% rather than another 100% on top of those settings or power or whatever. So keep in mind, we're not just doubling things across the board. I'm doubling things because I'm going from 110 to 220. It might be different for you, and so just something to be aware of. If you're having trouble, that might be why. As always, you can join the Discord if you're confused about something or you need help. The Discord link is down there. It's a great place to get help from people who have already gone through this process and can share some more information with you or elaborate on some of the things you've seen in this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you got some value out of it. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. If you really loved it, you can sign up for our brand new Patreon page, which will help me make more videos in the future. Also, another announcement, we have a brand new Discord filled with people that do laser stuff. So if you are looking for a new community that's laser centric and filled with creative people who can help you out along the way, definitely check out the Discord. And finally, I just want to plug a couple of the affiliate links down in the description. One of them is to Adobe, which can get you set up with Photoshop and Illustrator to help you create graphics for your laser. The other one is to Brilliance Laser Inks. While the brand new 8-inch lens is really going to help us do some bigger pieces of metal on our fiber laser, it's not going to do the biggest pieces that customers are looking to have done, and that's where Brilliance Laser Inks comes in. It lets me take a large sheet of metal that I can fit on the 28 by 20 inch bed of the CO2 laser and etch that chemically with the CO2 laser. So they make a really great product. It costs less than the competition, and there's a 10% discount code in the description when you use my link. So definitely go ahead and check that out if that's something that you're looking to do. All right, guys, that's it. That's all I got for today. I promise I will have a new video for you soon. I think next time we're going to learn how to do some black marks on cutlery steel and things like that, rust resistant marking. So if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe because that's going to be coming soon. One last note, let me know what you guys want to see on the channel. If you want to see a video and I haven't made it yet, leave me a comment down below and let me know. I'd be happy to make it for you. I just want to help everybody as much as possible, and the best way to do that is for you to let me know what kind of videos you're looking for. That's all I got for today, guys. I'll see you in the next one.